what's driving this whole issue of trying to reset the whole financial system that the World Economic Forum and others are proposing. What they've said is there's no way out of this. So we have to collapse the system. And if we collapse the system, then we can wipe away our debt, and we'll throw a bone to the people and tell them that they don't have to pay their credit cards and their mortgage and their car payments and stuff like that. And that, but what they're really trying to do is get rid of the trillions and trillions of dollars that they're not going to be able to pay. There's a guy who I mentioned to you, Martin Armstrong, down in Florida, who's an economist who has figured this all out in spades. And Marty, early on when he was a kid up in New York, he was working when he was in high school in a coin shop. And he was fascinated by the history of all of these coins and things. And when he was going to go to college, his father said, "You got to get a real job, go learn computer programming." And so he learned computer programming, but he was always interested in coins and trading and wanted to work on Wall Street. Well, he got to Wall Street, but he still knew computer trading. And what he found out, and you'll find this interesting, I mean, we talked a little bit about it the other day, is that he found out that there are these cyclical aspects of history, and he could see it in the coinage and when it showed up and when it didn't and when it quit and so on, and he correlated that with history, and he suddenly found out that there were these regular predictable kind of cycles in the way things work. Well, he built that, he expanded that into a piece of technology that he calls Socrates. And Socrates is the first, at least in the open world, the first real AI that monitors 73, I think it is, different aspects of our reality. And he has isolated the cyclical characteristics of all of this. So whether it's weather or climate or politics or finance or futures markets or whatever it turns out to be. And the thing that's compelling about this, it's never been wrong in 40 years. He can tell you, unlike anybody else, when the market's going to hit the exact top and the bottom. And, at one time he had the largest financial advisory firm in the world because of that. And, it's kind of been an interesting story. The CIA came to him one day and said, we want the source code for your program because it's so accurate. And he said, "No, I'm not going to give you the source code." And they said, "No, we're really serious." And he said, "No, I'll take you on as a client like any of my other clients, but I'm not giving you the source code." And so they essentially said, "Well, watch this." And they ginned up some charges against them, which are minor little things, and literally, and they threw him in prison for 6 years and put him in solitary confinement. And he had to, to have one of his friends from Congress finally lean on him to get him out of solitary confinement, but he was in prison for 6 years. He gets out and they come back to him again and said, "Now are you going to give it to us?" And he said, "No." And they did it again for 5 years. He was 11 years. He was in prison because of the effectiveness of his program. So the bottom line of the story, what his software says is that, and for 40 years it said that this year starts World War III. Next year, between 2025 and 2027, is a global civil war. And what that means, I believe, is that there's an uprising across the planet by citizens against their governments. I mean, when you think of a civil war, you think of two factions within a country that are fighting for power or something like this. This is different. This is global, and it's an uprising. And if you then say, well, is there any indications that say that might be the case? Well, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people on the streets all over the world that are all in one way or another, demonstrating against their governments. And so he says that after 2027, then what happens is there's a breakup of the major kind of political kind of relationships. There's no EU after that, and there's no United States of America. That the U.S. comes apart, and over the period from 2027 to 2032 is there's a reconfiguration in North America, and you end up with 5 or 6 different new countries, and by 2032, and by the way, that's just kind of straight line projection. From his point of view, the Chinese kind of own the place. Well, as I said to you when we chatted about this, he has nothing in his database or in his history about extraterrestrial life showing up. I don't think he's got anything about climate change and what the implications might be. He certainly doesn't have anything about AI and what the role of AI would be. So there's some real wild cards in the mix here.
So there's no natural disaster overlay in this.
Well, there easily could be a natural disaster, but I come back to saying that there's no Armageddon in this, in either his scenario or any of the ones that I kind of take on.